Mike Gatto with us tonight. We're going to have some great conversation with him and uh, tell us a little thing about or two about California and who knows where else we're going to go for sure. Appreciate you, and if you would just let people know who you are and uh, what you're about, Mr. Gatto.
Sounds good. Ricky, it's great to be here. Honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Mike Gatto. I'm best known as a former California legislator. I rose the ranks, got elected to 4 terms in the California state legislature. I'm also a fixture on many news stations that you probably watch. I give the perspective of a California Democrat, but I do it without taking life too seriously, without taking our positions too seriously, and and I'm not afraid to call us out when I think that we're doing something wrong. And finally, I'm also a co-host on a history podcast where we dive into a lot of different, conspiracy theories and amazing parts of history from, going back to Roman times, all the way up to the present time. And so I love this stuff, as you can tell from the books behind me. And so I'm just really excited to be here tonight.
Awesome. That sounds cool. That podcast sounds really cool. I'll have to check that out and for sure because I love history and checking out that stuff. I'll have my TV on different stuff all the time on YouTube, just watching different documentaries and stuff all the time, just playing in the background. I sure enjoy it, just learning. Because if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it, as they say. So
Absolutely.
we need to learn. So, uh, tell us about I know you said you had 4 tours in California. You know what what did you learn, and what do you think we could do better out there? I know that a lot of problems here and there,
Yeah.
and what do you think they could actually do to actually improve some of the situations? I mean, I know that right, Republican, Democrat, but I mean, we're all people. We need
Yeah.
I think we need to do away with stop thinking that broad of the side of you're picking a side no matter if you like the person or not. We can't, that's what got us into the situation we're in now is we're picking sides. Well, I'm just voting because I'm a lifelong Democrat or I'm a lifelong Republican, and instead of actually looking at the character of the people and actually looking at the people,
Yeah.
and what they're actually saying and looking into what they're saying. So, what do you think on?
Yeah. So I mean, so first of all, you raise a very good point, and it's something that people have loosely talked about in the state of California, which is what would happen if we were to ban political parties from being on the ballot. And the theory would be, I mean, look, people can do research; they can find out who's a Democrat, who's a Republican. They can also, people are going to make their thoughts known during the course of a political campaign or an incumbent. They're going to let people know if they're a Democrat or Republican. But what would it do for voting, right? If, most people are familiar with the race for president, they're familiar with the race for governor and senator. But as they get to page 20 in the ballot, they don't know anything about the person except the party. And what would it do if we took the party off the ballot, right? And it forced people to actually research. Who is this guy? What does he stand for, right? And I like that idea. I think it's intriguing. It also would send a very not so subtle message to the country that we are one people and that positions matter more than parties. Now, you asked me, what could we do better in California? How much time do we have? It's a long, 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 long list, and there's a lot of things we could do better here. You also asked me what I learned, and that's maybe the thing that I can lead off with because, I like giving people a little window into what life is like. I try to speak real. I try to be honest, and people don't always know what it's like being in office. So, first of all, the lead-in had today's lead-in had 2 great little vignettes from George Carlin, the greatest comedians who ever lived. And I think what he said is really true. There really is an elite in this country, and they keep the tax code, and they keep, they give, in many cases, they fund both parties. And there is some truth to the fact that it's like they do want us to just fight. I actually believe, too, that foreign powers want us to fight. I believe that China and Russia and anybody who wants to weaken the United States of America is, out there kind of encouraging and funding different groups to go at it. before anyone says, "Oh my God, that's a conspiracy theory." Well, I mean, look, we do it too, right? I mean, our intelligence services, whenever we want to create havoc in a country, the Arab Spring, for example, we go into a country and we just try to divide and conquer. We try to get everybody really whipped up on social media or regular media, and we want to get them fighting each other, and that opens the door for a coup or a change in government. And I think right now the country's really divided. It is not, that's not our imagination. We can say a lot of things like, oh, the kids aren't this, the kids aren't that. Some of that stuff is subjective, but the country is very, very divided. And so anybody who speaks up and just says, hey, you know what, we're all Americans. Maybe we should be considering what's best for us as a country. That's how we should be thinking. But you can't find that thinking in too many places these days.
It is hard to see, it really is. And, more and more like people are just, and I agree that, all the way to the top is, we've seen that over the history where, where banks have funded both sides of wars. And, we've talked about it on the show, like different, I've done a lot of deep dives. I mean, looking into it, like a lot of projects and stuff like that. It's kind of a rabbit hole I've been going through and just looking at stuff. And the more I look, the more I see, you're like, well, would they do that? Like, yeah, the CIA's done a lot of amazing, crazy things that,
Yes.
overturn all of South America at one point in time. And you look at
For sure.
middle, like you said, the Arab Spring, Egypt, Libya, all that, we've helped, and brought some democracy, to many places. And so, yeah, they want us to fight. And I think and they use the media and they use all that to use the power of the media to turn around and, okay, well, this is where you need to be upset about, and sometimes if you take that two steps back and look at it, it's like, this is trivial stuff of what's really going on in the world. But that's what they got as well, because some people are really passionate about certain little small items, and it turns around and turns into a fight, and it's where everybody's arguing with each other on Facebook, and people are leaving, families are breaking up because of
Yep.
it's like this. Come on, some of that's some got to give it to me, especially the
It's sad.
family
And I'll give you a
parts.
concrete example. Obviously, I'll give you two concrete examples, right? One comes from politics and one is just an anecdote, right? The first one is, California had some really catastrophic wildfires, not just last year, but about 8 years ago now. This was the Northern California wildfires. And, for the longest time, right, these wildfires there's a quirk in California law that makes the electric utilities responsible for wildfires if their equipment was involved. And so for the longest time, it was like you had all these people who lost their homes, thousands of people lost their homes, and a lot of people lost their lives. And then you had on the other side, the electric utility trying to stay open and not go bankrupt. And then you had the ratepayers saying, geez, we're going to get screwed, right? So, but what's interesting is I became aware that there was, some hedge fund guys, and what they were doing is it's brilliant, right? So they were buying shares in the utility when it was really, really depressed. They were buying its bonds when they were selling for like 30 cents on the dollar. So they were taking a big ownership position in the company itself. But then on the other side, they were buying the claims of the homeowners who were suing the utility. They were buying the right to collect on behalf of thousands of homeowners, right? And then simultaneously, to have a three-pronged approach, they were lobbying the state of California to have the ratepayers, you and me, bail them out, right? And so it's like heads, tail. I mean, it was like a three-sided coin. Any way they won, right? I mean, it was just so brilliant. But also, like, it shows that, what George Carlin was saying in the lead-in. Like, these folks are different, and they're pulling strings on all these different sides. The other thing that I learned really recently is, look, you and I probably pay a lot of taxes. I probably pay a lot of taxes because I live in California probably more than you. But I was talking with a friend of mine, and he's like, taxes are what are put in place by the ultra wealthy, the folks who have control within the government to keep you out of their ranks. It's like, what do you mean by that? Well, it's like, if you're a hardworking upper middle class person, there's a term from Henry. I think it stands for high earner, not rich yet. Yeah, Henry. And you could be the most elite doctor, the most elite lawyer, you will never rise to that next level because the tax code is going to get you. But if you are already at that level, if you have vast inherited wealth, if you're a hedge fund person, whatever, you can spend the $30 million on accountants and lawyers to put in place a tax shelter, a tax loophole, type of trust that is going to preserve your 500 million for the rest of your life, and you'll never have to pay massive taxes on it. But if you're the guy who's making whatever, you're making really good money in New York or California, and you're on the treadmill, you will never rise that level because you just can't afford the army of accountants, and the taxes are going to get you because your income is more taxable. So there's really something to what George Carlin was saying, and I think that's it's not a conspiracy theory. There's a lot to it.
No, and especially recently, we've had so many conspiracy theories that have truly been proven right. Last year or two, or really last five. A lot of conspiracy theories that everybody was knocking people down, and been proven right. And so it's there's a system to it, and there's certain people to get to be able to do certain things, and even with them like the hedge fund, and I know they were having like what they did was Circuit City and Toys R Us, and they tried to do a GameStop where they're trying to make the stock go down so they could turn around, and it was like, man, it's wild what they can do, and manipulate the system to make them even more money. No matter which way they go, they can make money. No matter what, if it drops, they can make money. They can turn around, and it's insane how they're able to do such a thing, and
it really
legally,
is. Yeah.
But yeah, we we get, I know out in California they got the rail system they're trying to push through they've been working on forever, and they got the the water and everything else, and of course the homelessness and stuff like that has been really really rampant, which is it's bad everywhere.
Here's a conspiracy theory that I believe, with respect to homelessness. People become homeless for a variety of different reasons, right? I mean, when you and I were growing up, it was often the Vietnam vet coming home who just had what now is known as PTSD, was having a hard time, and there'd be one or two in a community. Sometimes there could be a woman who's fleeing a bad relationship and she's sleeping in her car. But what we're seeing in our cities is a whole different type of homelessness. It's mostly young men who have drug addictions, and in some cases, severe mental illness, and in some cases both. And there's armies and armies in our big cities of guys like that. And one of the things that I believe will come out, and I believe pieces of it have come out, and I don't think what I'm saying is something that the US intelligence community would disagree with tremendously. I do believe that China and other foreign countries are some of the people who are pushing these drugs on our streets. And if you think about it, like what's the best way to harm the military of a country if, God forbid, there's a huge war or something that requires lots of manpower? Well, you take out 5 to 10% of the young men, and that is what we are seeing on our cities, right? We're seeing vast numbers of men who are fighting age being literally taken out of the system, where they will probably never be functioning members of society. They definitely will not be able to fight. They will not be having sons of their own. And, even when they're in their 30s or 40s, they will be more of like a ward of the state than somebody who can contribute by paying taxes and doing all these things. And, that is something that I think is a very powerful long game. But again, I think that is something that in our lifetimes, it will emerge that a lot of the drugs that are being pushed in our cities, they are coming from foreign intelligence sources.
It wouldn't surprise me none, and I would bet, and I agree with you. I can see that we turn around and, you hurt the system. And then even when the ones are like veterans coming back over here, and then they get, with their PTSD, and they get hooked on stuff, and some of them are the ones that we still got veterans on the street, even, to this day. And then of course, if you get them hooked on drugs, if something big happens where, you got to start, God forbid we had to do a draft where you start bringing people in, well, they're not they're not going to be any count to even try to bring in, even though they got experience to. And
Precisely.
so, so
Precisely.
we can, it will knock a lot of population out on that. And I wonder on the other side of things is, you know, there's so many people. We've seen this with the, a lot of the shooters and stuff like that. They're bringing out. Seen a lot of people talk about it. It's like, there a lot of people are on a lot of major medication.
Yes,
And
they are.
um, you know, and for, and so, prescribed medication and truly, some of those people on Prozac and stuff like that. We don't need them over there. Well,
Yes.
maybe we do. Maybe we put them on the front line or something. But and take their medicine away. Like, here you go, here's your gun, and take your medicine away, let you rip.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but seriously, it's there's that issue too with our medical. Like, there's so many people that's so highly drugged up, and some do need it, but I really do believe a lot of it's over prescribed.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
you know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, big pharma, right? They're the original big. I guess big tobacco is another one, but big pharma is very big.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it always, it's been like that for, big time. We learn it now. If you look back in history, like big tobacco was sitting there, and it was propaganda about doctors and everything. We found that out. It came out for sure in the '90s. A lot of people knew before that, but it came out in the '90s, and it was. Let me bring Jamie in on here, Mister Jamie Grant,
Mic check, mic check. Good day, good evening, something like that.
something like that.
Hey, Jamie, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Dealing with technical issues as always. Man, my GoPro hates my laptop, and
That's why I switched. I'll send you a link to the one I got, and I think you'll like it. If you
all
get
right,
this camera I got here, I think you'll like it.
Mr. Gatto,
Um,
I apologize, brother. Sorry to hold you guys up, man.
we shot
No,
on
it's
off
fine.
on time because he's got a certain amount of time. So I was like, we're
Ye-
just going to go, and if you're able to make it, I was hoping you'd be able here to help kind of um, help me ask questions and stuff. We always do good
In the
ideas
last 20 minutes, we solved world hunger and world peace, and
and
came up with
homelessness.
3 more conspiracy theories that yeah, and I think no, but in all seriousness, we did talk about some really cool ways to improve our country coming together, and then we talked about 3 or 4 minor conspiracy theories that I think we both can agree, or a lot of people could agree, are probably true.
Right on, right on. Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, I will just post in and jump in where I can then. Since y'all are
Great.
already rolling, please don't let me interrupt you. Just keep on. I've got some questions for you before you close out, and
Sounds good. Yeah, I got about another 15 minutes, so let's have at it. Ask me anything, as they say.
well,
So
I was
Go ahead, Jamie. Let her
curious
rip.
to know. I was curious to know about some of the efforts that you had about trying to keep film and TV inside Hollywood, and how that went. I know that different studios are popping up across the country, and what your role is in trying to keep Hollywood active and keep those studios running.
great question. Okay. And I'm going to give you a nuanced and an honest answer. I don't know any other way to be. Okay. I represented a district, 500,000 people, and it was centered in Hollywood, California, like the actual Los Angeles neighborhood of Hollywood. I represented Hollywood, East Hollywood, North Hollywood, Burbank, which is, where a lot of the studios are, where Johnny Carson filmed, so on and so forth. Glendale, Silver Lake, Los Feliz, Atwater, La Cañada, La Crescenta. Okay, so this was like ground zero of the entertainment industry. In one of my cities, Burbank, it was estimated that 1 in 5 people worked in the entertainment industry. And we're not talking like Tom Cruise folks. We're talking like, working class folks who, build the sets, carpenters. We're talking guys who do sound editing and stuff like that. So, we started to see a phenomenon called runaway production in the 1990s in California, where people just realized, like, there's other places in the country that have decent weather and they've got some skills, and they don't have all the red tape that California has. So let's go shoot somewhere else. And it even became like, not even in the United States, it became like other countries, right? People were going to other countries to film. So I got really emotional a couple times because I would be on the campaign trail, young father. I had 2 girls. They're apple of my eye. They're my everything. And, I met a guy once and he said, I said, how you doing? And, there's like tears in his eyes. And he's like, I haven't seen my family, man, for 6 months. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, I've been in Georgia where the jobs are. And, and there's just not enough production anymore in the district. So I felt bad. And I tried to introduce this production tax credit that, basically subsidizes the entertainment industry to keep the jobs here. I'll tell you why, though, that I'm very ambivalent about it. Okay. First of all, Democrats are hypocrites. Okay. We talk about taxes like, oh, they're great and taxes are great and they do all this stuff and, blah, blah, blah. And the government then, spends the money. But then California Democrats will recognize, but you know what? If you lower the taxes on the entertainment industry, like it'll maybe make the industry thrive. And like, to me, that inherent hypocrisy was trouble because it's like, you could say this about anything, right? You could say, gee, we really want to have a gold smelter in California. So we're going to get rid of the taxes on gold smelters and we're going to subsidize them, right? I mean, it's just kind of funny. The second thing is it's a race to the bottom. It's a race to the bottom. I mean, California could throw 300 million at it every year, $1 billion at it every year. Then another jurisdiction will throw $1 billion too. And just at some point, it's just a race to the bottom. I mean, it's like, who's going to throw more money at this? And why this industry? Like, I get it. They're good jobs, but why not bookbinders? Why not ditch diggers? Like, why, right? And then the third thing that kind of bothered me about it a little bit was just the idea about government messing with something that's protected by the First Amendment. We're actually seeing this in California now too, where California last year passed legislation subsidizing newspapers. And it's like, gosh, what could go wrong? The newspapers, which are dying, are going to become dependent on the government for billions of dollars. Like, what could go wrong? The government giving money to the people that are covering the government. I mean, so I just started to have some second thoughts about it. Don't get me wrong. These are great jobs. Love the jobs. I feel bad for the families. But I don't know if this is the long-term best plan that we can do.
Right. You see, different markets up overseas now where there are a lot of different countries there are a lot of countries that they're filming in overseas. And I was just curious, what your role in with that was and what positives came from it, what negatives may have come from it.
I got the legislation passed. It was the first time in 20 years and people have been trying it for a long time and we got it done. But look, it doesn't mean that I don't see those.
Right. Is it the right answer?
Exactly.
When you talk about the money that's wasted, through different programs that are subsidized, we hear about the train that never went anywhere in California with the money that was wasted there, the different homeless initiatives that are constantly just end wells that, they're bottomless pits that have money thrown into it, but we don't see a change in that. One big question I have for you in regards to California as a whole, there's a current campaign by Governor Newsom right now to try to prove that through social media that California is one of the lowest crime states of any jurisdiction. You see this constant campaign where, Mississippi has more crime, Tennessee has more crime. What would you say to that, living, on the coast in LA and around these areas? How has crime come down, or is it just a manufactured number that's being used?
Yeah, so I think that campaign is largely nonsense. Now, I'll explain. There are two types of crime statistics. There's murders and there's everything else. Murders, right? You can't really fudge. And I will be one of the first, to acknowledge, because it's a fact, that murders are down nationwide compared to the 80s or 90s or whatever, metric you use. There are very complex sociological reasons why that is. Nobody really knows. Some people have argued that it's just generational differences. It's advances in DNA technology, which make people think they're going to be caught. It could just be that there's security cameras everywhere, right? Murders are down. That's a statistic you can't really fake because there's a body, right? You really can't cover up a murder, okay? I mean, like the police forces can't really do it. However, the other crimes, property crimes in our cities in California, things like burglary, really, really nasty robberies where, people are getting hit over the head and things like that. Those crimes, the statistics are absolutely 100% full of it. And I'll tell you why. Let's go through the process of how a crime gets reported. So my wife and I have a friend who lives in our old neighborhood in Hollywood, and she's a youngish woman, and there's a homeless fellow who has taken a liking to her, and he believes that the way to show his like for her is to chase her with a machete. Okay. She calls the LAPD and is like, there's a guy chasing me with a machete. They're like, well, has he hit you? And it's like, well, no, I'm trying to avoid that, right? And it's like, well, we're kind of busy, right? Okay, now, believe it or not, this is what happens in LA. And I want to go right into what I'm talking about, how the statistics are manipulated. For a crime to become a stat, first of all, the person has to call the police. In a lot of our cities, in San Francisco and Los Angeles, if somebody bashes out your back window and steals your radio, you don't even call the police anymore. You don't even report it, because you're just going to lose another 2 hours of your day while they come there to take the report. Number two, the police have to come. Okay. And in a lot of cities, they're like, we're busy. Sorry. Like, there's another homeless guy pooping on the sidewalk. We're not going to come out. Number three, after they show up, they have to take a report. Okay. They have to actually take a report. And in some cases, that involves a lot of paperwork, and they don't always like to do it, especially if people aren't going to be prosecuted. The fourth step, they actually got to arrest somebody. They got to find somebody and arrest them. And then once they arrest them, they have to book them. They have to take the added step of driving that person downtown in traffic, maybe an hour, and actually book that person. Once that person is booked, they have to be charged. And maybe in some other cities, you're like, well, Mike, this stuff happens all the time. Let me tell you, in Los Angeles, this does not happen, right? Like, we had a DA who just got kicked out of office by the voters. He was just not charging people. He was just like, like, I'm just not going to charge these people. After the person is charged, they actually have to be prosecuted, right? The DA has to actually take the case and go to the court and try to get a conviction. And then that person has to either plea or get convicted or get exonerated. Right. And once you have that, it's like, okay, check. Now we have an official burglary or an assault. And you can see that if any link in the chain gets broken, oh, crime is down, right? Don't trust your lying eyes, right? Crime is down. And that's just not the case. Look, born and raised in California, property crimes, things like that, they're way, way, way up. And they're way more significant than when I was a kid.
There's a growing trend where we live in a state that has a Republican governor. We live in a city that has a Democrat mayor. And it seems as if there is, again, a social media campaign among all these Democrat cities to say that crime is down across the board. When the people that live here see a different tale, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I live in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee, and to see our DA and to see our police chief and to see our mayor, who are all known leftists, get on TV and talk about how crime is down and we should be happy that crime is down. Yet a body shows up every week in Memphis, not every week, every day in Memphis. Yeah. Stolen cars are through the roof. How would you suggest people, look at it or combat that? If there's a coordinated social media effort to prove something true that isn't true, how do you recommend the average citizen combat that?
I think the best way to combat it is at the ballot box. I've said to Democrats, like, this is not a winning strategy, right? Like, going into cities where people are like my window is bashed out, someone broke into my neighbor's house, like the old lady was conked over the head, and then telling them, no, crime is down. Like, this is not a winning strategy. This is like when last year people were seeing Joe Biden on TV, and we all have old folks in our families, right? We're all humans, right? And people were seeing this man where he was just a shadow of his former self. And then everybody was like, no, he's just fine. He's great. He's fine. Right. I think that is not a winning strategy. And so it's almost like, I don't know that the public have to combat this because it's not going to win. It's not going to be successful. And the people who keep pushing it, saying, don't trust yourself, I just don't know that that's going to be a winning strategy.
Yeah, it's tough, when you live in the heart of it and you see these things that go on, yet,
Yeah.
our local leaders keep getting on TV and pushing this narrative that no, it's all an illusion of what you're
Right.
seeing. I
Right.
mean, we had a big event yesterday down in Memphis, or I'm sorry, 2 days ago on Monday. We called it 901 Day. September 1st is known as the 901 Day in Memphis. Big concert
Sure.
downtown. Multiple fights break out on historic Bill Street. Person ends up getting shot on Bill Street, but the mayor and them act like everything is just fine.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing to listen to. I'm glad that you actually shed some light on it and say, hey, maybe some of this is false, narrative, and it's refreshing to hear you say that, and not just go along
Well,
with,
and by the way, the, the,
you
the
know.
most effective way that you can fight back, and I do this a lot on my Twitter account, is someone will post crime is down, or actually, that meme, actually crime is down, right? And often it's a reporter, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but wait a second, what's your metric? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, are you talking about arrests? Are you talking about convictions? Because
Right.
having convictions down is not a good thing. Like, that doesn't really mean that crime is down. It means convictions are down. And like, when you get people to think like, which phrase or which step of the chain are you talking about? Are you talking 911 calls? Are you talking arrests? Or are you talking convictions? It really gets them thinking, And by the way,
Ricky, we
I
got
have a
some bad
buddy,
feedback right now. I don't know
uh,
if you're playing with your mic there.
not
Okay.
from me. I think that's
Yeah,
Ricky.
from Ricky.
I
Sorry,
assume that
continue,
was
Mr.
just.
Gatto. I apologize to interrupt you. Go ahead,
No, I
please.
was just saying that just ask them what their metric is. Are you talking 911 calls? You talking convictions? You talking arrests? What's your metric? And that usually is enough to get them like, wow, I didn't think about it like that. It's like, yeah,
Right.
what's your metric?
I did read that you were actually a victim of violent crime in your
Yeah.
family, and that your father was. Has there ever been any movement in that case, or are they still active pursuing it with DNA evidence, or is that just stopped now?
Yeah, I mean, it is technically a cold case. My father for those who don't know, my father was murdered in his home in Los Angeles. Let's see, 12 years ago now, almost 12 years ago, in November of 2013. It's one of the reasons why I'm no longer in politics. I feel like it's an open wound, and it's something that I just trying to solve that mystery has been such a journey, and it has taken so much of my time. But I wrote a book about it. But I mean, look, there have been leads. I would get, for the first years when I was in office and everybody knew how to contact me, because, everybody can contact their local politician.
Right.
I mean, I got all sorts of false leads, and I wrote about some of this in the book. I had people say some crazy things, including Hillary Clinton, right? And
Oh, wow.
so, yeah, but I mean, the short answer is my dad's case is cold, but the LAPD is still working it. Grateful for that. I'm still working it as best as I can, and we're hoping for answers at some point soon, hopefully through DNA.
Well, I appreciate that update, man. I definitely don't mean to open up a wound, but I know that
No, it's fine.
being
It's
being a
fine, man.
victim of crime, you have a firsthand knowledge of how some of this stuff works and doesn't work. Obviously, I
For
figure with
sure.
DNA technology these days, everything should be pretty clean and cut.
Yeah.
Very interesting. What made you decide to get into politics? What made you go down that road?
Great question. So, I was running at the depths of the Great Recession. That's when I started my journey, and I had a good job and short commute. It didn't involve a jet because in California you got to fly to the capital, right? At least from Los Angeles. So I had a good job, a young wife and a young baby on the way. But I got tired of shaking my fist at the newspaper and being like, we got to do better. And at some point, it's like, oh, you think you can do better? Well, then give up your cushy life and go try to do better. And I sort of just challenged myself. And it's so rewarding to get elected. It's so rewarding to have, in my case, 500,000 people say, we're going to trust you to make these decisions for us. So yeah, I really like the idea of just trying to represent my district and, try to do what they needed and what they wanted.
It's one of the most surreal things that hit you once you got office about politics, that kind of set in and you went, whoa, this is, a little bit
Well, like,
more
okay,
than.
get more specific. Are you talking like something that made me like like humbled, like, wow, like this is,
Something
or
that surprised you, something that really caught you off guard. Did you ever get approached by anyone where it's like, hey, we want you to sway one way or the other, or
oh yeah,
a
oh yeah,
financial aspect of that? How do you, I mean, most people, when you look at some of these politicians that jump up from zero wealth to all of a sudden being worth 30 or 40 million dollars,
sure,
obviously they're going down a hole that others don't go down. How do
sure,
you maintain your integrity and
yeah.
not?
So 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 California is really strict, and we've had a lot of people arrested over time. There was a huge scandal like 20 years before I ran for office called Shrimp Scam, where the FBI created a false shrimp company. They went in and they like were given like cash to California lawmakers, and like a whole bunch got arrested. And it was like a huge scandal. So out of that came a lot of reforms. Like, for example, when I was in office, if somebody took me to dinner and they spent more than $50, I had to report it. I had to report their name and what they gave me and everything like that. And the newspapers were very kind to me because, I had a birthday party for one of my daughters at the time. And I actually had to go around the birthday party being like, that dress you bought her, this is so awkward. I hate to ask this, but did you spend more than $50? And if so, I got to write down your name. And like,
Right.
and it's like, cause your family, is reported on your report. So, but I'll tell you a really funny story that illustrates just how paranoid I was. And, cause I believe there is a cohort of people in politics who are ethical and stay ethical. So I was chair of appropriations, a really powerful committee, and we had the power to veto bills in the legislature, basically stop them in their tracks, which is a rare power that committees have. And there is a bill on, and I'm not making this up, there is a bill on testing dogs' ears. There's a lot of shampoos and stuff that they test them on dogs' ears, and the dogs are kept in horrible conditions, and the dogs often die. And it's a thing. Like, this is how shampoos are tested. It's kind of cruel. And, very good bill. There's no reason why I wasn't going to support it. We got an email from the lobbyist supporting the bill. He was not a elite lobbyist. He was sort of an older guy. And in the email, we kind of thought he was drunk. And he's like, Mike, like this bill really means a lot to me. You've got to get it out. Like, how much will it take to get it out? Like, what do you need? Do you need me to like throw a fundraiser for you? And I was like, whoa. And so I had to call the legislative council of the legislature, call the ethics commission of the state and say, we got this email. I was going to let the bill out. It's about testing animal ears. But what do we do? And they're like, you have to kill the bill. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, he's offered you a bribe. And whether you've accepted it or not, he's offered you one. So if you let the bill out, that is actually technically bribery by the definition. And the public wouldn't know if you accepted it or not. So you have to kill the bill. So I had to go and kill a bill on dog testing, on testing shampoo on hounds' ears. And I could not tell the story until I left office. And so it was such a relief to
Now, is that a strategy? I mean, could that be used?
Yes. Brilliant question. Because that came out during Shrimp Scam. People were like, man, if the FBI just goes in and they want to kill any bill, they can just walk into an office and be like, I'll give you $5 to pass the bill. They can kill it. And there's actually people who argue that in court. Like, this is a weird power, right? And so
was the gentleman prosecuted for anything, or was he?
No, he wasn't prosecuted. I think they called him and they figured out that he was indeed drunk when he sent it. And, and I don't know. It was really a weird story, but yeah, it's
So basically, if we want any bill killed on the floor, all we have to do is call and make a proposal.
Go commit a felony, though. I mean, that's the thing, is you have to actually commit the felony to do that. You have to actually make the attempted bribe. But yeah, if you really means a lot to you, you probably could kill a bill that way.
Do you think that prosecution of stuff like that is very selective on who they go after?
I think so. I think this is my belief, and I don't know that I've ever articulated this that well, but let me try to articulate it. I believe that every single person in politics is human. And I believe that everybody has something that they could criticize. For some people, it's cheating on their spouses. For some people, it's horrible personal finances. And it goes all the way up to like, the most dastardly people who accept bribes and do stuff like that. It's a continuum. There's different types of, Achilles heels, but I believe that everybody has something. And sometimes you wonder, like, why does stuff come out? Why did stuff come out on this guy? But then the other guy was doing the same thing and nothing came out. And the answer is, well, this guy pissed off the wrong people, right? And you look at your whole life, anybody looks at their whole life, it's like, well, there's always something that you've done that people could say that's horrible. And they can make it up if you haven't done anything. And so sometimes I do think, yeah, there are invisible hands that pull the strings and they release stuff on people that they do.
If you had a piece of advice to give to somebody that wanted to jump into politics, what advice would you give that person?
In this time, be authentic. That is by far the most important thing. The public does not trust us. The JFK assassination was the first, like, step down. And then Vietnam was, boom, another step down. And then Watergate was a big step down. And then all the shit that happened in the last 20 years was another step down. People don't trust us. And the only way that they can trust you is if you're authentic. Because humans can tell from cues and body language, they can tell if you're being real. And I think, like, as long as you are true to yourself and it shows, then that's what people need right now from politicians. They just need authenticity.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have one final question for you, and then I'll let Ricky take it back over. In the last 18 months, I've seen a social media campaign running on Facebook and Instagram solely dedicated to September 11. And I wanted to know what your thoughts are on the conspiracy that this was a self-inflicted wound and that other powers were involved other than who they tell us was involved. What your opinion on that was?
Great question. So, there was a Roman author who 2,000 years ago said, if you need the answer to a conspiracy theory, just ask the question, cui bono? And that means who benefits, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think that, it's clear that there were definitely some different folks that benefited from what happened after 9/11 than one might typically think. The way that we handled the wars after that, made some people very, very wealthy too. I have read a lot on this because it's just one of those things that interests me, right? It's like there's such passionate viewpoints on both sides. When all is said and done, I don't have a strong answer to that, and I don't have a strong opinion. I know that some of the victims think it's disrespectful to even talk about this, and I don't mean to hurt them in any way. And I also know that, some of the victims think the opposite. They're like, we want the answers. We just want a true answer, whatever it is. I don't know. Look, I mean, I know that there's all these debates between engineers and scientists about whether, jet fuel could burn the steel enough to take down the buildings and, what happened with the other small building and stuff like that. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not sure we will ever know. It's, the JFK assassination was so long ago. And the fact that we are still talking about it and we are still asking our government to release papers on it, it just goes to show that there's certain things that, I just don't know that we'll ever know.
Beautiful, man. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
I definitely appreciate it. Well, Ricky, I hope you caught it. I know you were messing with your sound over there, but we just had a great conversation. So,
yeah, I can hear you.
I have time for one more question. And so do you want to ask the last question or?
Go ahead, Ricky.
I just, I appreciate bringing this down a little bit. I know I'm a player. Yeah, my mic decided to be silly, so I don't know what's going on, but I sure appreciate you. I just appreciate you coming on and giving us some good insights and just back and forth and being genuine and stuff like that and wanting to come on here. Just that's awesome, because we're not a big podcast or nothing like that. We're not a big show, and for you to be on TV, you've been on TV, you've been on big shows and stuff like that, and want to come over here because we're trying to do something. I just really appreciate it and appreciate your time, and hopefully maybe one day we can have you back on sometime down the road.
I would like that. I love your production quality. I love the stuff you talk about, and thank you for having me on. I think podcasts are the way that there's different corners of the country that are reached, and different corners of the intellectual broadness of the American people that are reached by different podcasts. And so I, really, really honored to be here, and I do hope to see you guys again soon.
Well, I'll tell you, man, if you ever make it to Memphis, Tennessee, I'll take you to the best barbecue spot in town. We won't have to wear a bulletproof vest. We run a local MMA show here 4 times a year. We've got one coming up in October, October 25th. If you don't have anything going on and find yourself in Memphis.
Send me, awkward to say this on a live podcast, but send me an email about that, because I'm a part owner of a local MMA boxing league that is looking to expand to other cities. So send me an email on that, and maybe we can get them together.
Dude, let's talk, man. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm the voice of Memphis.
That's fantastic. All right, guys, we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir.